Once, more than 600 rooms stacked as high as 5 stories rose in the middle of the desert. And one day, the people who lived there pulled out the massive wooden roof beams one by one, sealed their homes, and walked away for good. There was no final war, no single disaster to explain it all. And that's the mystery. One of the most sophisticated civilizations of ancient America vanished from its great cities, and we still argue about why. Stay with me, because by the end we're going to dismantle the most famous myth about these people, the one that says they simply disappeared. Let's go back to the start, in the heart of what is now the American Southwest, where New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, and Arizona meet, an extraordinary culture flourished. We popularly call them the Anasazi, but let's be clear from the outset, archaeologists today prefer the term Ancestral Puebloans, because it's more accurate. The word Anasazi comes from Navajo, and their own descendants reject it. These were not wandering nomads. The ancestral Puebloan culture thrived from roughly the year 100 to 1600 AD in what is now the Four Corners region, and they're believed to be the ancestors of today's peoples like the Hopi, Zuni, Acoma, and Laguna. And their masterpiece was Chaco Canyon. Picture an almost desert landscape, harsh and unforgiving, and in the middle of it, a city. 1,000 years ago, Chaco Canyon was the center of a flourishing civilization where the ancestors of the Pueblo built monumental great houses from the region's yellow-orange sandstone. The most famous building is called Pueblo Bonito, and its numbers still astonish. The largest of the great houses is Pueblo Bonito. At its peak, this enormous building stood 4 stories tall and held more than 600 rooms. All of it, listen closely, without metal, without draft animals, and without the wheel. These multi-story structures, with hundreds of rooms, were built entirely of stone and wood, with no metal tools, no beasts of burden, and no wheel. But Chaco wasn't an isolated city. It was the center of a network. The Chaco roads were carefully engineered earthworks, typically long, straight, and about 8 meters wide, linking Chaco Canyon to other sites and to important natural landmarks, spreading out like the spokes of a wheel. And along those roads came things astonishing for an inland desert. Archaeologists have found cylindrical jars with traces of cacao, the plant chocolate is made from, whose nearest known source lies in Mesoamerica, more than 1,600 kilometers to the south, and also the skeletons of macaws, tropical birds native to Mexico, chocolate and tropical parrots deep in the desert of New Mexico 1,000 years ago. That is the reach of this civilization. And then everything began to unravel. The prime suspect has a name and a date. Geologists have determined that there was indeed a 50-year drought that began around the year 1130. Think about what that means for a society of farmers. These droughts hit the crops hard, especially maize, which was the foundation of their diet, and the resulting food shortages likely caused malnutrition and fiercer competition over ever scarcer resources. And the monumental building simply stopped. In general, construction of the great houses at Chaco Canyon ceased around the year 1130. Is that a coincidence? The outcome at Chaco was devastating. Disaster arrived. Between 1130 and 1180 came a long stretch of drought, infant mortality rose, the storehouses emptied, and Chaco was finally abandoned. Many surely died, but it seems at least part of the population migrated north toward the San Juan River. But here is where the story turns darker, because the drought may not have been the only thing. At some sites across the region, archaeologists found something that completely shattered the idea of a peaceful, utopian people. At a place called Castle Rock in Colorado, an area was excavated where evidence emerged of dismemberment, torture, and cannibalism. Who was responsible isn't clear, but raiding and pillaging were common among the different native groups. As the crisis deepened, the architecture itself changed, and that change tells a story of fear. People began clustering into larger, more defensible villages. Homes were built into cliff faces high above the valley floor, reachable only by precarious rock trails, a clear sign of growing insecurity, and the Pueblos abandoned the open valley sites in favor of remote alcoves in the canyons, trading access to water for safety from possible attackers. That is the unsettling picture. People giving up water, the most precious thing in the desert, just to live somewhere hard to attack. Still, we should be honest about what we know and what we don't. Some doubt that drought explains everything. According to one alternative theory, the Great Drought of 1276 to 1299 is rejected as the total cause, because the heart of Chaco Canyon was abandoned long before that drought, and other researchers point to an enemy who came from outside. The theory of Athabascan invaders is supported by the defensive turn in Pueblo architecture. Though they were probably weaker militarily, those nomads could have forced abandonments through guerrilla tactics. The most likely explanation, specialists say, isn't a single cause but a domino effect. Many argue that drought becomes the main cause of abandonment when it combines with other factors. Its impact is magnified as the population grows and resources, especially trees and soil, are overexploited. Drought, deforestation, hunger, violence, all at once on a society already living at the very edge of what that land could bear. And here we reach the twist I promised you. Because when people say the Anasazi disappeared, that they vanished from the face of the earth, they are repeating a myth. The reality is different and, in a way, more fascinating. To begin with, there was no single sudden abandonment. There were two abandonments in their history. The first was Chaco Canyon around the year 1150, and the second came 150 years later and led to migrations out of the wider Four Corners region around the year 1300. And the second point, the most important, they did not disappear, they moved. Archaeologists and representatives of today's native tribes agree that the Chacoans went in all four directions when they left Chaco Canyon, joining groups already settled there: south toward the Zuni-Acoma area, north to the Mesa Verde region, west to the Hopi Mesas, and east to the Rio Grande Valley. For them, movement was not the end, it was life itself. As Tessie Naranjo of Santa Clara Pueblo put it, movement is life, movement is seen everywhere. Movement was characteristic of our ancestors, who moved across the landscape like clouds across the sky. So the next time you hear about the mystery of the civilization that vanished, remember this: their descendants are still here. Today there are 21 Pueblo tribes living in the southwest who are descendants of the ancestral Puebloan people. The great houses fell silent, the canyons stood empty, but the people who built them never disappeared. They simply stopped being where we expected to find them. And perhaps that is the most unsettling truth of all, that sometimes we mistake ruins for an ending.